All right, hello everybody. Thank you for your patience on this one. Um, this past week's topic is weight management for disease prevention. So we're going to talk about some specific diseases that are related to weight. Not necessarily 100% related to weight, but are often seen in people with obesity or overweight. Um, the first thing I want to preface this with is that the scale is the least important number when it comes to your health. The scale and your BMI. I'm going to say that right now. I have seen people that are underweight with type 2 diabetes. I have seen people who are overweight that have better lab values and better overall health markers than thin people. So we know that that number on the scale isn't necessarily the number one indicator for your disease risk or how healthy you are. So I just want to put that out there right now. Despite what we hear relatively often, um, I would consider weight more of a symptom than a cause in these situations. So keep that in mind. Your weight is just a number. It's just gravity's effect on you. What really matters is your health. But we do know that there is some relationship between weight and disease, so let's talk about that. So we know that the data shows that weight management um, plays a role in preventing chronic disease. So when I'm talking about chronic disease, I'm talking about things like diabetes, heart disease, certain cancers. And we know that when we have healthy habits that are linked to healthy weight, that can decrease the risk of serious health issues. Again, there are other factors at play here. So sometimes it's genetic. Sometimes um, people have autoimmune diseases that affect things. Sometimes it's your environment. So, it could be your home or literally the outside world. So it's about how these things play together. It's not always just on you and your weight. So some things that are related to excess weight or doesn't mean that the excess weight is exactly the cause, but related to. The first one is increased risk of type 2 diabetes. So we know that when you're overweight or obese, that you have an increased risk uh, by up to 6 times. Excuse me, that's a weird way to say that. But you have your risk of diabetes is increased by 6 times um, when you have excess weight. Wow, Sydney, couldn't you have said that a little simpler, huh? So we know that type 2 diabetes is usually related to insulin resistance. So when we have excess weight, that those fat cells can secrete hormones that interfere with our insulin production and our reaction to insulin, and that's where that comes into play. We don't have to get deep into that, but that's kind of why those are related, in a very brief description of that. Next thing, increased risk of heart disease and stroke. So the reason primarily for this is physical activity and diet. So physical activity is what keeps your heart strong, especially cardio. So if you're not walking, cycling, um, swimming, running, whatever, try to get at least 150 minutes of that a week. So that can be 30 minutes 5 times a week of moderate intensity cardio. That's the current recommendation to prevent or reduce risk of heart disease or cardiovascular events. And so, again, the heart is a muscle. It needs to be worked. So when we're doing these cardio intensive exercises, or when you feel your heart rate going up during exercise, that's benefiting your heart. So your heart is a pump. And there's this thing called stroke volume. So every time your heart beats, how much blood is ejected from your heart. is related to that stroke volume. So when you exercise, it increases the stroke volume, so you're able to pump more effectively, and that way you need less heartbeats, so less beats per minute to circulate the same amount of blood. Um, so that ultimately saves your heart, that pump, a lot of beats per minute. So less work on your heart, less wear and tear, lowering the risk of disease. And then, of course, we know diet. So diet, when you're having a lot of saturated fats, that can increase your cholesterol and your triglycerides. And we know that those are related to heart disease, and we want to keep those levels um, within a healthy range. Um, so that's kind of how that plays a role. And when we have that extra cholesterol and saturated fat, it can lead to plaques that line the arteries. So the arteries are the vessels in your body that take blood away from your heart. So that's kind of what you got to imagine is going on when you're having a poor diet. We're just slowly adding more and more plaque, which helps. I wouldn't even say helps, which can cause stiffening of the arteries, so being able, they're not as flexy and able to pump as well, and get stiff, and that can lead to blockages. So that's the kind of overly simplistic version of that. So we know those things matter. And again, it's more the behavior, not the weight itself. That's the behavior is the eating poorly, not, and that can lead to weight gain, but it's not necessarily the weight itself. I want to emphasize that again. The next thing too is links to certain cancers. So again, this is another behavioral one. So um, yes, obesity is associated with increased risk of cancers, especially the one I want to highlight too is colon cancer. That's a big one because people are not eating enough fiber, and that waste is just going to sit in your intestines and build up, and that's part of what's going wrong there. So we really need to be mindful of our fiber intake. So when you're eating, you know, a lot of beige colored foods like crackers or cookies or bread or white bread or things like that. When we're having a lot of those low fiber foods, that's going to slow things down. And not only is it going to be uncomfortable, but it's not going to be good for your health in the long run. Um, and then also we know that poor diet can increase inflammation, which is also going to contribute to the cancer risk. So again, it's more about what you're doing to get obese and overweight than actually being overweight or obese by itself. You're gonna get sick of me saying that because I really, really feel passionately about that. Because you can be overweight and be healthy. It's not necessarily the weight itself. All right, osteoarthritis and also osteopenia and um, oh my goodness, my brain can't work here. You know what I mean? Osteoporosis. There we go. So, when we're having excess weight on our bones, especially combined with poor diet, so that's usually we're not getting enough calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, which are helping build our bones back up and keep them healthy. We're not giving our weight-bearing joints and bones an easy time. So having excess weight can wear those things down. If we think of our bodies like a machine, we know that if you load your car up or try to pull something too heavy, the transmission's gonna give, right? Or you're gonna pull off a support or break an axle or something. So same idea. When we're not feeding our bones what they need to be strong and healthy, or we're increasing our inflammation and putting extra stress on our bones and joints, that's going to be the outcome there, or at least going to increase the outcome there. So we want to give our bodies the best chance we can. That's why that excess weight can be hard on that. But again, the behavior is always the biggest part. Fatty liver disease. So fatty liver disease is very common. This happens primarily when you have excess carbohydrates. Um, or if you've ever had like elevated triglycerides, that can be related. So basically, your liver gets inflamed and it gets too much fat on it. And that fat is what leads to that inflammation. And if you're not addressing fatty liver disease, it can cause damage over time, leading to cirrhosis. So typically, we hear about liver cirrhosis, in alcoholics, but a poor diet can be just as bad for the liver as alcoholism. So if you've ever been told you have fatty liver, it's really, really important that you address it with diet, especially by decreasing your sugar and simple carbohydrate intake and getting in more fiber through fruits and vegetables and legumes and things like that. Fatty liver can cause all sorts of trouble. So it's really, really important that you address that if you've ever been told you are suffering from that. And that can make you feel super tired and low energy, can disrupt your sleep, things like that. So it can kind of be a little bit of a cycle because you're tired, you don't feel like doing anything, but also you need to be exercising and moving so that you can address the fatty liver because that will help manage it. So a lot of these things, it's about our behavior and it's a cycle of behavior. Like when we treat our bodies poorly, we're gonna feel poorly, and then we're gonna perpetuate the cycle of inflammation and poor energy and poor health. All right, so top things that I like to recommend to people. Pretty much every study you read is going to say Mediterranean diet. That is the way to do. We know that it's good for heart disease, um, whether reducing the risk or if you're recovering from an event. We know it's beneficial for reducing cancer risk. We know it's beneficial for reducing diabetes risk. There's really, I have a hard time not recommending the Mediterranean diet. And you're going to hear that over and over from your doctor and pretty much every healthcare individual, unless, if they're not recommending the Mediterranean diet, I'm going to question where they're getting their evidence from. So really the Mediterranean diet is high in fruits and vegetables and whole grains, healthy fats like olive oil, and then it's a little bit lower in meats and dairy and breads and things. So that's the simple version. Um, but the real key factor is the variety of fruits and vegetables and the emphasis on healthy fats and fish and things like that. And then, of course, daily physical activity. Um, so daily physical activity, according to the World Health Organization, can reduce pretty much the top main causes of mortality by up to 30%. So we know that exercise is good for us. We hear that all the time, but it really, really does play a significant role in your health and longevity as well. So I'm glad that you guys are all here. Good on you for pushing your boundaries and pushing your bodies and doing good things for yourself. You're doing better than 90% of Americans just by being here. So let's talk about some impacts on weight loss. So we know that just a little bit of weight loss of 5 to 10% of your body weight can improve health significantly. Oftentimes, when we see these improvements in body weight, it's because we're doing healthier behaviors. So people will often experience things like lowered blood pressure, reduced cholesterol, better blood sugar control. Um, and then that in turn will lead to decreased risk of chronic disease, which is the part of the point today is what we want to emphasize. So that's one thing that we want to keep in mind. It's not just for how we look and how we feel, but you're also going to have better quality of life and a longer life when we do these things. And I honestly think that is just the most important thing about weight loss, not the weight, not the number on the scale. It's nice to have our pants fit a little looser or have to buy new ones and things like that and just feel good about how you look. But you really, at the end of the day, if you don't have your health, what do you have? All right, so the importance of sustainable habits in maintaining your weight. So we know that pretty much anybody can lose weight if they want to. Um, you can change your diet, you can do all sorts of things, but it's whether or not it's sustainable is the big thing here. If you can't sustain it, so maybe you try some fad diet and you're doing really good and you lost 20 pounds in 2 months and you're feeling great about that, but can you keep that up? Is it sustainable for the long term? Because when you quit, or if you quit, if you're not able to sustain that because you're not a superhuman with superhuman willpower, it's probably just going to come all back and then some. Um, and we're not going to really have those long-term risks. So it's important to make sure that we're making changes that we can continue on through the rest of our lives. So, yep, like I said before, avoiding fad diets. Oops, pardon me. Didn't mean to click that. Um, we want to avoid fad diets because, again, they can promise these quick results and we can see quick results. They're absolutely effective for losing weight. I won't even argue they absolutely can help you lose weight. But usually the weight you're losing is muscle and some fat. And when you lose muscle like that, because it's usually a rapid weight loss and an extreme diet, you're actually doing more damage than you than the benefits you might receive from losing that weight. When you're losing muscle, that's hurting your metabolism. That's going to slow your metabolism. That's going to affect your body's ability to respond to insulin and handle carbohydrate loads. And it's going to decrease your health overall because when we lose muscle, we lose health. Again, when we try these fad diets and then we eventually give up because they're so intense and hard to maintain, that creates a yo-yo dieting effect. And again, when we lose that muscle, it's going to disrupt your metabolism, and then you're going to gain even more weight back because you don't have that muscle fueling your metabolism more. Um, because you've all heard that muscle burns more fat and more calories than fat in your body, right? So when we want to keep that fire burning hot, we need muscle to do that. And then again, the thing to combat this is just try to make small changes. We don't have to do everything all at once. And I think actually most of you are really, really good at this. So kudos to you guys on that. Um, but we don't want to just like say, okay, I'm giving up all simple carbohydrates. I'm not eating sugar. I'm not going to drink pop. I'm only going to eat green things. And then you try it for a day and then you're feeling hungry and tired and cranky and you give up, right? These things, the research shows that these fads and these um, extreme changes just don't stick. And even I wouldn't be able to do them with all my nutrition knowledge and blah, 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 even if I thought it was the healthiest thing in the world. There's also the fact that food needs to be enjoyable and that it's a social experience, not experiment. Um, and that food is part of enjoying life. And when we're doing these fad diets, I just don't even, I just, they're just not enjoyable in my opinion. I think they promote a lot of stress around food and eating and can disrupt the social aspects of food quite a bit. So try to make it small little changes. So maybe you don't normally have breakfast. Maybe you try to add that in and have like a bowl of oatmeal or just one egg and toast or your Campbell's soup. Uh, joking about that one, of course. Uh, just make something small, or maybe have a extra glass of water. Just something that you can add to your life that benefits your health. So again, we talked about the small little changes matter. even if it's just adding that glass of water in or taking a few extra steps. And then choosing something that you can be consistent with. So maybe you have a checklist like, okay, did I get that extra glass of water in today? No? Okay, well, now I need to do that. Um, and then having a supportive environment, that's really key here. So not only is this social support, but making your home and the area that you spend the most time in during your day um, a conducive environment to those health changes. So if you're packing your fridge full of soda and have an icebox cake thawing in there, that's not really going to help you achieve your goals because it's going to be taunting you every time you open the fridge to go get your next meal or snack, right? So making sure that you're keeping lots of fresh fruits and vegetables around, chopping them up so they're easy to snack on, keeping them in your fridge right in front so you can see them and be like, oh, that sounds good. Um, and I'm not saying you don't have to have your house fully rid of your favorite snack foods, but maybe putting them in an inconvenient spot. Um, so maybe you keep your cookies in your car where you have to go outside and take a few extra steps to get to them and just make it a little less convenient for yourself. Um, or like I said, having those health foods already ready to go, cut up and front and center in your fridge, or having that water bottle sit right next to your favorite chair. So every time you sit down, you can remember to take a sip. Like make your environment do the work for you. That way you're not having to use more willpower points throughout your day. The less thinking, the less willpower you have to use, the better. So go through those. You can pause and read those if you need to read them more. All right. So then the social support of things. So this one can be tough, especially in the summer when we have graduation parties and surprise birthday parties and cookouts, barbecue, all sorts of things. So what I would suggest is try to find family and friends that are focused on health, that try to find a healthy buddy. And so maybe you'll have a friend that instead of saying, "Hey, you want to go out to the Chinese buffet?" Maybe they'll be like, maybe you have the type of, "Hey, do you want to check out this new hiking trail?" Or do you want to go work in my garden and pick a salad, pick out ingredients for a salad or things like that. Like try to have people in your life that are going to help you promote these healthy habits. Because eating again and working out are social activities, and if you choose people that are positive influences, it's going to make it a lot easier to keep it up in your own life. And this is not to say that you should just toss out your friends who love donuts because they're still great friends and worth having in your life. But try to interact with people who have more shared health goals also to give yourself some balance. So you're not having to say no to the Chinese buffet every time you want to hang out with a friend or um, even try to be that friend. So maybe your friend says that and say, hey, maybe another time. How about we go cook a meal, a healthy meal together at my house? Or how about we go do this XYZ instead? So not only finding people that are that kind of social support for you, but being that for other people. Again, and then of course, prioritizing being consistent. So it's not about perfection, and I've told several of you this before. We don't have to be perfect to see progress. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not perfect. And I never will be. And but I do try to be consistent. So I do make sure that I'm getting that physical activity in, um, and I am getting those fruits and vegetables in. Maybe I'm also getting a snack in too or a treat in too, but I'm always making sure that I'm hitting those goals, even if I'm not gonna have a perfect, quote unquote, perfect day. Um, my continuous goal is okay. Did I get 2 cups of fruit today? Did I get 2.5 cups of vegetables today? Did I eat a lean protein? Did I get enough water in? Did I get enough steps in? So being consistent with those basic things over time, because those are going to matter way more than was I absolutely perfect today? No. Does that mean I should give up and just throw out the whole basket? No. So focusing on, am I doing this most of the time? Am I doing this at least once a day or every day? That is the most important thing. So don't beat yourself up if you're not perfect. It's okay to have fun with friends and, have a few laughs and treats every now and then. It's just a not everyday thing, right? So don't beat yourself up if you're not fully adhering to things. It's okay. We're human, but strive to be consistent. All right. So that's my ramble for this week. Um, if you guys have any questions or want to know about any topics more in depth, feel free to email, ask me during the session, whatever you need to be successful. And just keep up the good work. You guys are all really doing a great job, and you should all feel very